You know, my friends, this is the third week of readings, and these are all from the Gospel of St. John. They're wonderful readings. You see the woman at the well 2 weeks ago, then last week was the blind man, and then this week is the Lazarus. It's beautiful to go through those and read those again. These are just wonderful readings, and they tell so much in a short little space of time. And I promise you not to give any questions or tests like the deacon does. You know, my friends, when you get into this gospel, both Mary and Martha said, "Lord, where were you? We asked you to come and it took a couple days and it's just a few hours away. Why did it take so long?" That's the first question both asked. Why did it take so long? Jesus wanted to make sure that they knew Lazarus was dead. And that's why it said 4 days, because in the Jewish traditions, they always felt that the soul would hover for 3 days. So he wanted to make sure that everybody knew that he had passed away. It's similar to that quote. We wanted to verify it legally, morally, ethically, spiritually, physically, absolutely, positively, undeniably, reliably dead. Where's that from, my friends? Things are getting pretty bad when I'm starting to quote the mayor of Munchkin City, right? But that's what Jesus wanted. He wanted to make sure he was absolutely dead, right? Absolutely dead. And what did he say? Why? Because these people that were following him, they needed to see the glory of God. He said that twice. They need to see the glory of God. I was reading an article this past week. It was about a prison hospital chaplain, and he wrote this: "Without a doubt, the hardest part of my work is not foreseeing the physical components of people's sufferings, although that's very important. But there's also the spiritual and emotional pain of relationships gone bad, estrangements among loved ones that tend to get really raw in times of crisis or when death comes. So many people have within them so much pain, and they don't know where to place it. That's my role, to help them know not where to place their pain, but to whom to place it. But to whom to place it." And I thought, you know, there's so much pain in today's world, isn't there, my friends? So much pain in our lives. And he's saying that with not only relationships, but other things as well. Other things as well. There was a nurse on a pediatric ward, and always the nurse would take the heartbeat of the little child who was ever there. She would listen to it, and if it was okay, then she would also take the stethoscope and put it in the little child's ear and then let them listen to their heartbeat. She said one of those was a 4-year-old boy named David, and she put it on his ears and she put it into his chest, and she said to him, "Listen, what do you suppose that is?" And he's listening to this, and his face, after about a 30-second pause, broke out into a deep grin, and he said, "Is that Jesus knocking?" And you know, my friends, I thought, you know, these little children, but that's what Jesus wants to come into our hearts, doesn't he? He wants us to see the glory of God. All of us. You know, we come to church, don't we, my friends? And we come to church, we leave. We say our prayers, and then we leave. It's this process that we go through. And we lose the effect, the impact that, yes, there's something going on here. The power of God, my friends, can change and do things, and can do things. The first thing Jesus did when he got to the tomb was, what did he say? "Remove the stone." It's a great line. Remove the stone. You know what the stone represents? It's an excuse. Excuse. We all have stones in our life, don't we? We all have excuses as to why he can't get into this where he's supposed to get into our hearts. We all have wonderful excuses. What's the excuse they use? As soon as he said, "Remove the stone," what'd somebody say to him? Martha says what? "The stench." Yeah. Well, how am I going to heal him if I can't get in there? Excuse. It's a good excuse. We all have great excuses, don't we, my friends? Maybe fears, insecurities, you name it. We all know the excuses. We don't have time. All sorts of things with our relationship with God. You want to see the power of God, my friends? We need to remove the stone. Remove the stone, which is an excuse. Which is an excuse. At the beginning of this, the first reading is the last section of a beautiful reading in the prophet of Ezekiel. He stands on the edge of a field, and it's the edge of a cemetery. And God said to him, "Prophet, pray that the Spirit comes into those bones and brings them life." And that's what he did, and then the bones came to life. Same reading here. Jesus touched that man, and those bones came to life. Whenever I think of that reading, that one from Ezekiel, I remember my days when I went to Medjugorje in 1988. I went there because I wanted to discern whether I should become a priest or not. And I wanted to go to a place where I'd have some quiet and be able to think. And I didn't really want influence of knowing people. So I traveled over there with a group about 50 or 60 from the Boston area. And they became wonderful people, once I got to know them. But when we got there, I'm sure it's different now, it's built up, but we used to stay in people's homes, and none of the roads were paved. We had running water that was limited in the house, but there was no warm water. So that's how almost barbaric it was back then. Now this has changed since then, but in that group though, there was 4 boys that were there. They were wonderful kids, wonderful. They were all tremendous wrestlers. And they were in the quarterfinals or semifinals for the state championships. I'm not sure which one, but they were all up in the top 4 to 6, 8 wrestlers in the state of Massachusetts. They didn't drink. They all went to church. They were coming back from the wrestling meet. They hit some black ice. They were all injured, but one of them was seriously injured and paralyzed from the waist down. And they went to Medjugorje. Now, when I met them at the airport and we were talking, they were filled with doubt, they were filled with anger, and they were filled with questions, as you could well imagine. As you could well imagine. Here they are, 18 years old, 19 years old. They have the world at their shoulders, and then at least one of their best friends is completely going to be crippled for the rest of his life. I didn't see them for the 8 days I was there, because we were all kind of separated. But the last night that we were there, we said Mass at one of the larger homes, and I think we needed to be at the airport or leave Medjugorje at 5:30 in the morning, so we had Mass like at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sitting next to these 4 boys, and this reading came on, this one with the dry bones coming to life. And I looked over and saw those 4 boys, and every single one of them had a huge smile on their face at 4:30 in the morning. And I thought to myself, the living God touched those boys. They left Medjugorje, my friends. He's still in a wheelchair. But there was no more questions, there was no more doubt, and there was no more anger. None. They left completely different than when I saw them at the airport 8 days earlier. And I thought they were touched by the glory of God. And I thought, that's what he can do, my friends. He can take that anger, that fears, the insecurities, the sins, all that stuff that we have in our lives. But all of us, too many of us, don't we, have this nice little stone, this excuse of why he can't come into our life. We need to remove the stone. Because what did Jesus say after he removed the stone? Another great line. Another great line. Untie him and let him go. Untie him and let him go. Beautiful, beautiful line, my friends. It's not what we know in this world that we get ahead, is it, my friends? It's whom we know. It's whom we know. And we need to remove the stone so we can let those words of Jesus that he spoke to Lazarus speak to our hearts. Untie him and let him go. God bless you.